Okay, so I haven't recorded in a while. I know my 83 subscribers have been wanting some new material. So here we are today. We're kind of doing a review of 8 slow roll. Uh, a review of quadratic formula and some, you know, complex roots that we have had. And I'm going to do a more better job about putting stuff on showing you how to do it in the calculator. All right. So, first thing, we got to find our A, B, and C. A for number 1 is 1. Okay. B is 5. C is 9. Now, I did this extra little step because I had some people, they're like, we talked about it yesterday. They needed a flow chart. Oh, by the way, if you hadn't hit subscribe, hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell, leave a good comment. All right. So, we plug in this stuff here. Okay. We're plugging it in, these values over here. Now, the first thing we need to do is take this and plug. Golly, that's a fat 9. Ooh, that's been hanging out at the buffet bar. All right, so we need to put that in the calculator. So, yes, speaking of fat 9s, here's a bigger me. All right, so 5 squared. Now, make sure it's a minus, not a subtraction. 4 times 1 times 9. Okay, so now this right here, we get a negative 11. There's a reason why I wanted y'all to do the stuff underneath the square root first, is because if you get this negative 11 and try to take square root of it, you'll get domain error or syntax error or some type of error. Okay, now look, slim fast. Now, so my bad. This is negative 11. Now, as we learned yesterday, if we have a negative underneath the square root, we're just going to take the positive version. So second, and then this x squared button, and 11. So it should look like this. Now, the square root of 11 is the square root of 11. Awesome. Okay. So if we're doing this step, all right, negative times 5, we get negative 5 plus or minus. Oh, I forgot to put the 1 right here. All right, 2 times 1 is 2. Now, we had the square root of negative 11. This is why we took the positive version of it. We learned yesterday that if we had a negative, we take the positive square root. That's what we did with 11. And what do we add to make the answer right? An I. Okay, and that's it. We're actually done now. Okay. Now, if that would have been a perfect square, we would have kept working. Okay. And I'm going to try my best to keep uh, my sanity, and also to try to make sure that uh, it sounded like somebody had an underleg noise in class. And I really think underleg noises are very funny. So I'm. So, um, we I'm going to try my best to keep our answers so they look like this. Okay. Um, that's what I think a quadratic formula problem should look like. Okay. Now, does that seem to be a little bit better getting, with everything plugging stuff in the calculator, getting the having to do the positive root and stuff? Yeah, it is different. This is new, and we have people laughing about the underleg noise that we may have to call like the medics to get some oxygen. Okay, not because it stinks, it's because they're laughing. Okay, all right. So a little bit better, a little bit better. Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to number two. Okay. Now, number two, same process. Remember, we only want the numbers, not the variables. All right. This number in front of x is 1. It's a negative 1. And then 15. So we plug this in. All right. This step right here, this is, oh, I got to put my drink down here. Okay. This part we need to plug into the calculator first. Muy importante. All right. So negative 1 squared minus 4. I wish I could do this backwards, but I can't. I'm sorry, guys. All right. I get negative 119. I don't think they're having the effects of laughing gas. I think they're laughing about gas. Shh. It's it's so funny it might blow you away. Okay, just hang on. Okay, for people that are paying attention, I'm laying out gold here. All right. So we take the positive square root. I'm glad I'm recording because it seems like we have majority of people just not paying attention. And we get that. Okay. That's kind of what we're going to need right here. All right. So if we're cleaning this up, negative times a negative, we get a positive 1. 2 times 2 is 4. We get our plus or minus. We're going to add this square root of 119. And then what do we need to make it complete? An I. Okay. That's it. And I'm using that line as my fraction bar. Okay. So, and what I thought was hilarious, um, yesterday, not in this block, in third block, one student just in the midst of quiet said, "Wait, that's all? That's really the big difference between what we did yesterday and the day?" I said, "Yes." They're like, "Oh, that's easy." It should be easy. Okay. I have a student mean mugging me. All right. So the goal into while we're kind of reviewing a little bit more and more as we go is so that you find that this stuff is boring, not like, oh my gosh, I can't do it, it's boring. It's, oh, we have to do more of it, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So that's number two. And number three, same process. Now, for my people that were factoring yesterday, solving these by factoring, you would find out really quick that you cannot solve this by factoring, because if there are no factors of 12 that add up to negative 4. Well, yes, there is. Never mind. I should probably look at the problem better. Okay. 1 and 12. And then 1. All right. So I'm plugging this in. Making my way downtown, plugging this in, gonna get scramming it done now. White chick stuff. Perfect. Oh, never mind. Now, yeah, that was right. There are no factors of positive 12 that's negative 4. That would be different. All right, so we get negative 32. Okay. Yeah, negative 32. So we take the square root of 32 and we get 4 root 2. Now, if you didn't get 4 root 2, your calculator may be set up in the wrong mode. Okay. Okay. Now, we're plugging it all in. Negative times a negative is a positive. Okay. 2 times 1 is 2, plus or minus. And then we're going to write this 4. Let's move this 4 over a little bit. Okay. And then a root 2. Now, what we have to do is, again, we have to put that I in there. Now, we have not seen one like this, and again, I'm going to show you. I'm going to try to avoid them um, at all cost on the test and stuff, because this next step does not really test what you know how to do on the quadratic formula and negative exponents or negative square roots. All right, we should notice that all these whole numbers are divisible by 2, right? Yeah, it's 4 and 2. Yeah. So you can actually factor out a 2 from all that. So if I divide everything by 2, well, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. Okay. So we're just going to, we could do this. We could write 1. Okay. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then 2 I root 2. And most times this will be written as such. Now, I've told people before, if you get this multicolored answer right here and you don't reduce it, I only take off 1 point. Now, if you're lost on how I went from the multicolor to the brown, don't worry about it. Okay. I got some who farted faces because people are lost and people are actually trying to figure out who farted a while ago. Pretty funny. So great. Love teaching high school. Awesome. Okay. Huh? Yeah, you just simplify it. It's like a simplified fraction. Mm-hmm. All right. So is that a little bit better? Minus the simplification, plugging stuff in, getting the square root, dealing with that business. That's the main point of these 3 problems. Okay. That's the main point of these 3 problems, not anything else. Okay. This is what the Cajuns would call a lagniappe. It's something a little extra. Okay. Lagniappe. So, like Louisiana, you would go to like a small grocery store or something, like back in the 60s and 70s, they would load your groceries in a nice brown paper bag that biodegrades a lot easier than plastic. Well, they would put something extra in the bag, like for free, like a little something here, a little something there, something that they thought people could use. Yeah, it's lagniappe. It's actually it's a like a French Creole type thing. It just means something extra. I don't know. I've heard in Louisiana they have mosquitoes big enough to take you off somewhere. Okay, they have big mosquitoes, like pterodactyl size. They have to have big mosquitoes to be able to say Massachusetts the right way, because I can't do it very well. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's what we've done so far. Okay, Now, before we move on, does anybody know what you get when you cross an angry sheep and a grumpy cow? You get an animal that's in a bad mood. All right. So, LMAO. Yeah, I got you. I was picking. I'm I'm a lot smarter than I look. Okay. Yeah, hopefully. So, multiplying complex numbers. Okay. This is the main thing that you need to know. If you ever have I squared, it's -1. Okay. That's the main thing. If you see I squared, that I squared now becomes -1. Okay. I just need you to say yes. I squared is -1. Don't think about why or who or this is why we can't have nice things while we're dropping stuff. Okay. Just remember that. All right. So here's our problem 4i times 6i. All right. This is actually how I still do it. I multiply the numbers 4 times 6. I get 24. Okay. I multiply the I. There's two i's in there. So I times I is I squared. Well, that becomes what? Yeah, I heard it. It's a -1. Why is it -1? Well, previously we had discussed that. Okay. You're, I got you. All right. So now we put it together. So 24 times -1 is -24. And that's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's really it. We're getting there. The suspense is awesome. I hope it lasts. You hope it doesn't last. Now, some of y'all that are high speed, you've already went through that first example. You're working on the second example, and then you're lost in the sauce. And then we have some people that are still trying to understand the first example. Okay. All right. So let's look at this second example. Same thing. Multiply the numbers -3, 5, and 2. Now, again, I have this written or whatever um, as you would enter it in your calculator with the negative in the parentheses because, yes, that matters. Okay. Wow. All right. We get -30. Okay. Now, let's do the eyes. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3. Apparently, this has been hanging out around the nuclear plant. It has 3 eyes. So, we know that I times I right here is I squared, right? Which I squared is -1. So all this becomes -1, and then we still have to multiply it right here. So what is a -1 times I? -1I. Okay, that's it. I is the square root of -1. That's why I squared is -1. Remember, if that part seems confusing, remember, opium was the #1 used over-the-counter drug. Okay. drugs and math don't mix. Drugs and most things don't mix. Yeah, because drugs are bad. Okay. All right, so now we put it together. Negative 30 times negative 1i. Well, negative times a negative is a positive 30, and we just tag along the I. That's it. All right. So now, instead of doing those 4 problems that looks like this right now, we're kind of going to look at this last example. Okay. Now, this is where it's not very clear on the standards where it says that you have to use distributed property. It does not state double distributed property. I can show you because I double checked. All right. So basically, we're adding distributed property to stuff we've already done. Okay. So we have negative 3 times 6, which is right here. We get negative 18i. Okay. Then, the negative 3 times negative 8, that's this right here. Well, negative times negative is a positive. 3 times 8 is 24. And I times I is I squared. Okay. Now, what do we know about I squared? Negative 1. So this is actually, when we get finished, this is negative 24. Now, as people are doing this, they probably would write it like this. Okay. It should always be in this form right here. A plus BI, where A is the real number. Basically, when we say that, A is the number without I, B is the number with I. Okay. Now, the actual answer, if I could write it correctly after harping on it, is this. Okay. That's it. Now, for those watching at home or across the globe, because it's worldwide, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell. We're going to do some other stuff in class that it's okay. It's just practice. Okay. Hit subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell. Good stuff. Good things. Roll Tide.